Welcome to today's episode of Not Just Politics, where we get young voices heard. Today, I'm joined by Fraser, a postgraduate philosophy student who suffers from obsessive compulsive disorder, or commonly known as OCD. We'll be talking a little bit about what it's like to live with a mental disorder during COVID, a global pandemic. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Fraser. And as you said, I have OCD and yeah, hi.
Hi. How are you? Are you okay? How are you today?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's good. My housemate, unfortunately, has had a couple of symptoms of COVID like last week, so I haven't left the house in a really long time. So other than that, I'm fine. But
how are you dealing with like the anxiety of that at the moment? Like the fact that
it's pretty tough because there's like extra precautions that you get asked to do. Like I have to like wipe down anything that we like might share, and it's pretty hard to like keep on top of the cleaning all the time, especially when you've got like OCD.
Yeah,
but other
I
than
can
that,
imagine.
I'm good. Yeah.
What have you been up to then recently? Anything?
Well, I've been doing a lot of drawing and music and stuff, just trying to kind of keep busy, to pass the time really until I'm allowed out again.
Yeah.
So it feels a bit like a short kind of almost like a prison sentence, just like a mini.
Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? Like I was talking to someone today, and like it kind of feels like we're all grounded, yet half of us went through the back door.
Yeah.
What were you doing pre-COVID?
So I was a bartender before all of this at the Font, which is a local bar here in Brighton. I don't know why I pointed over there, like it was going to walk in through
like
the door, but
and this is the Font.
And then here it is.
She's modelling a nice 1962 Chanel red dress.
Yeah, so I was in that, and I was gigging and recording with a couple of bands in the name of Moth and Odin Malchik.
Yeah,
I feel obligated to get the names in there. I have to do a mini little plug.
Yeah, so this is how I know Fraser. So I know Fraser through my boyfriend. He's in a band with my boyfriend called Moth.
Yeah.
So what has changed in your daily life?
Well, in a lot of ways, it's kind of the same, but just more. Like, so with regards to, at least with regards to kind of OCD, like a lot of that's kind of the same, because I'm still sort of following a lot of the same kind of compulsions, and I have a lot of the same anxieties. They've just come up a lot more, you know. So so in a sense, that's kind of the only thing that's changed. I mean, obviously, as in addition to, you know, just the standard kind of answers like, you know, I'm not going outside as much, and you know, I haven't seen my girlfriend in months, and you know, all that, you know, the normal things. But
so like just your obsessions and your compulsions become a bit more, would you say, like intense?
Yeah, I'd say
a bit more like projected as well.
Yeah.
So have you noticed you've taken anything for granted recently?
Well, I never thought I'd say this, but I just really miss like work. I really miss having just
like the routine. Just
I don't know. It's a strange one, because you kind of like because bar work is quite stressful. Yeah. You know, and
I can imagine it's super stressful as well, considering you've got OCD. It's quite a peculiar profession.
Yeah, career.
Well, not career. Job.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Like, how do you overcome like some of the things that you face in your day-to-day job life?
Well, I think in a lot of ways, working in hospitality was really good for my OCD, because it kind of forced me to, you know,
face your demons.
Kind of. Exactly. Yeah, and I mean that's very much the prescribed kind of treatment for OCD. Like, exposure therapies and things like that are often.
So you just fully basically went into the deep end, because if you haven't been to the Font, they serve food as well. So you've got food, you've got drinks, you've got human interaction, you've got a lot of stuff going on. It's very busy as well. So like OCD is probably one of the hardest things to have working in hospitality, I would say.
Definitely, because I mean, it depending on the kinds of OCD you have, but if you have what's called contamination OCD, which is kind of inaccurately referred to often as like the hand washing, you know, OCD,
yeah,
that
the cleanly one.
Yeah, that centers around you know, illness and
Mm-hmm.
anxieties about people getting sick. Then working in an environment where, you know, food and drink hygiene is a pretty high priority, is like, it's in a way it's like the best place and the worst place for someone with OCD, because in one sense it's very, you know, triggering and it makes you feel very anxious, but you're also very prepared for it because it's like, you know, a lot
Mm-hmm.
about kind of hygiene.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So you can just be like, actually, I don't think that's quite clean enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's definitely times where it can be almost.
So you have OCD, but what is OCD? Can you explain it to us in like a bite-sized lesson?
Yeah. So, well, I can try. I mean,
yeah. Can you try to summarize it?
I'll have a stab at it. Yeah. I mean, it's essentially obsessive compulsive disorder is an anxiety disorder that centers around not being able to control or stop obsessive thoughts and intrusive thoughts. So it's a kind of an inability to keep a handle on sort of obsessive worrying.
Yeah.
So, you know, someone with OCD will experience kind of feelings of anxiety around certain situations or objects or people or whatever, and they'll to a point that becomes an obsession in their own head. And they will express that obsession through
an obsession, would you say? Just for people who don't know.
So
how do you describe
in this context, an obsession, the obsession would be a recurring intrusive thought that you won't be able to kind of get out of your mind.
Can you give me a kind of example?
Yeah. So well, as it relates to you know, contamination OCD and COVID-19, the obsession might be that if I don't wash my hands for exactly 20 seconds or more, say, I will make someone sick. And for most people, they'll just go, okay, so I'm going to wash my hands for 20 seconds and now we're fine. But that doesn't happen when you have OCD, because you need to, because you're obsessed with the idea.
With that, can you explain to me what it's like to live with on a daily basis?
So, I mean, that will vary obviously quite a lot, kind of from you know, from person to person, and whether or not as well that sufferer is having a good day or a bad day, which I think is quite important, because there'll definitely be days where it's really manageable, and days where it isn't, just like all mental illness. Really,
how would you describe like a good day versus a bad day?
So on a good day for me, I mean, before all of this, it you know, when I was coping well, my OCD was kind of almost, I didn't really know, could go a whole day without even really noticing it or having any kind of intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
And I would, you know, if you just sort of saw me on the street, you wouldn't have any idea. But on a bad day, it's quite different. So, I mean, on some of my really bad days, it's been like even kind of small things like just trying to leave the house, or meet up with friends or go on a date or something like that. That can all become really challenging. But you know, and the reason for that can vary, but you know, very often for me at least, it will be because a big part of OCD is you carry with you this, almost like you have this kind of heightened sense of responsibility for the things that you're anxious about. So if you're anxious about you know, propagating a disease, or you know, or just, you know, anything really, if that's what you feel anxious about, then you'll feel like you have some kind of, for me at least, a sort of almost like a moral responsibility, like I have to do everything in my power to make sure that thing doesn't happen. And so that can really get in the way of like all your daily routines or just hanging out with people or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Because like you'll create scenarios in your head per se that might happen, and
absolutely,
those things might happen, but they're obviously not really going to happen most of the time. And it just prevents you from going in the first place, because you think like, well, there's a chance of it happening, so why would I do it? I think is like a lot of the thought process as well. So how are you coping right now? Speaking of coping, how are you coping with your OCD?
Well, I mean, it's tricky. because as I mentioned earlier, you know, one of the best ways you can get a handle on your OCD is through exposure.
Yeah.
But that's obviously
we're all self-isolating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can't really do that. And
you've got a job at Waitrose though, haven't you?
Yeah. So I've taken this part-time job at Waitrose, which in a sense,
I think is actually really admirable, and I think you deserve a pat on the back considering you have OCD and you're going out there to be a key worker right now. That's a massive thing in a global pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, and there's definitely been shifts where that's been really tough.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, so and again, it's one of these kind of good days and bad days things. You know, on the good days, it's fine, and I can get through my shift, and that's absolutely fine. But on the bad days, it's recently I actually had to get sent home, which was that was a really bad day because I was so convinced in my head that just by being there, I was going to make someone seriously ill and actually kill them, because the Waitrose clientele as well tend to be slightly on the senior end of the spectrum. So
we all know that. Let's be real, we're all 22, 23, 21, 18 all on here. We're not sure at Waitrose.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So that bad day at work, it triggered something though, didn't it? Can you tell me what that was?
Yeah, I'd got it in my head over the weekend before I went in that I'd been exposed to COVID-19. I just convinced myself of that. At some point, I must have.
I don't think that's a irregular feeling, though. I think everyone's convinced themselves of that at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I mean, that can be a good thing in and of itself as well, because it means that you can, be extra careful, which is what people need to be at the moment. But
exactly.
I think where it breaks down the difference between sort of someone with OCD and without is that for me that just meant I was kind of incapable of doing anything, and I convinced myself that even though I had no symptoms, it's it's because I'm symptomless, obviously. So so I was at work and you kind of, it's a very much a sort of a worst case scenario style of thinking.
End of the world, doomsday, gonna go happen.
Very much.
You just you can't stop it. It's a spiraling thought and I think that's what people don't understand, that you can't stop it. It is just end of the world.
It just keeps it's almost like I like to think it's kind of like for any musicians that watch this, which I think is probably quite a few, but it's almost like a feedback loop, it just keeps going and going and going. Did you just spill your drink all over yourself?
No, the placemat attached itself and then fell off, and I was like,
But it's kind of it's just this sort of like a feedback loop, it loops and loops and loops, and it's almost like it's getting louder and louder and louder inside your head, and then you just
So that day at work,
in the toilet.
So you hid in the toilet, and what happened next?
Well, I had a kind of a frank discussion with myself in the mirror of the toilet.
1-to-1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I took myself to the side and
full on 1980s monologue, gonna happen.
Yeah. The lights came down and a spotlight hit me, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I just could see the stress was all over my face. I'd gone really pale and I had these really dark circles under my eyes, and I was just a bit of a mess. And so in therapy, what they teach you should do is not run away, because you need to confront the thing that's making you afraid, because that's the only way you're gonna get better. But on this occasion, I actually think it was I did end up going home, because I went and spoke to one of my managers. I was like, I can't do this right
carry
now.
on.
No. And
I think that's fair enough as well.
You're
also a key worker as well. Beside the fact of OCD, having a panic attack right now isn't actually too irregular, and I think that needs to be said as well, that it's okay that if you are a key worker as well, because a lot of people our age are, if you're finding things overwhelming, don't stand for just suck it up. like if you do feel overwhelmed, tell your manager, and don't stand for like that kind of behavior. Like stand up for yourself, I think, during this kind of time. But so
I agree. But,
you got let home, which was amazing, obviously. And then what happened?
Well, I kind of felt on some level like I had sort of failed, which was a frustrating feeling. But I felt like I should have
stayed and confronted your demons, like you do in your job every day normally.
Yeah.
So this episode triggered something, and this is the reason why you're on here. What is unraveling?
So when I got home, as I mentioned earlier, I was kind of feeling like maybe I should have stayed and could tackled it, and I felt kind of, I was a bit down on myself for not doing that, and because I've there's been times before, like working in hospitality, there's been lots of times where I've had to be kind of strong and sort of face that fear before, and I've done it. So I felt somewhat let down, I guess, with myself, which is not really, it's quite unkind, and it's not a very nice way to think about yourself. So
no, not at all. I wouldn't. I was gonna say, like, as I said, like, even like, the normal person that doesn't have OCD, when I say normal, I say like someone with non-OCD. Even they're finding things overwhelming right now. Like we heard the reports of, like, I was scrolling through social media and normal news media when like people have been shouting at key workers and like they've been crying on shift. Like it's not uncommon, and like it might be because like they're either overwhelmed, they're tired, or they have the exact same fears that you do as well.
And I think the main thing that a lot of people are experiencing is this kind of this same sort of frustration, whether that's with themselves or just with the way things are going in the world. But and I think it is very easy to start feeling down about yourself given the environment that we're in. So I felt that I needed to do something positive and productive with these feelings, and originally I decided I was just going to do an Instagram post. I did this drawing, and I just wanted to do just a few paragraphs just explaining how really difficult this time is if you have OCD, and how
maybe drop me a message and say hello, and
kind of check
you were just like, I just want to say this, and like everyone give me a virtual hug. Basically, by liking this, and just I want to feel heard.
And exactly, and also I feel that people with sufferers of OCD, I feel like we are somewhat marginalized a lot of the time in popular culture and in media especially, and there's I can't think of a single positive role model, for example, that a child might have who has OCD. I can't think of any superheroes or anything like that with OCD, or there's no characters in Harry Potter who have OCD, and you see what I mean. So I wanted to kind of shine a light on that, and initially it was just going to be an Instagram post, and then I got into it and I realized I actually had quite a lot to say, and so I started this project, Unraveling, which became the podcast / blog that it is now. So
make sure you check out the podcast Unraveling on Spotify, Apple Music. It's on all major streaming platforms.
By now it should be available everywhere.
What do you hope to achieve by putting Unraveling into the world?
So that's a big question, obviously. I kind of think the main thing I want to do is kind of raise some awareness for OCD in general, but also just kind of have the impact on people that they're not alone in it as well. And so whether or not you have OCD, I think it might be, I hope anyway, it's worth listening to, because if you do have OCD, you might feel some kinship with the stuff that I say, and then that might that might be comforting. And if you don't have OCD, then at least it'll be kind of informative on
a bit insightful, and let you know what it's like right now, to see it from a different perspective, which is kind of what my channel's about as well. Is like, I want other people to understand different perspectives and different insights, because everyone has something to say, and I think it's about time that the people our age gets heard.
No, I agree, and I think it's great. I really like this idea.
Thank you. Yeah, I just like put that in there because, like, you know, sometimes people just watch this for the first time. What advice do you have for anyone suffering with OCD right now?
Yeah, because it's really tough. We're in unprecedented times, so I guess the only thing that I would say is that if you are feeling really confused as to what you should be doing, because I know I am, like, you know, and really overwhelmed and not able to do the things that you would have done to get better in the past, I think it's okay to kind of allow yourself to feel that. Don't feel like you're a failure for feeling overwhelmed and confused. Just accept those feelings, because everyone, I think, has that to some degree at the moment, like you said. And also just I would encourage people to look for their own ways of coping at the moment as well, because, you know, certain things aren't going to work for certain people, and, you know,
exactly.
we're all different. And just be kind to yourself as well. That's the other thing. Just be nice.
On that note, what do you think a post-COVID world will look like?
I think it'll be weird. I think it'll look weird for a bit, and then it'll kind of
become the norm.
Well, I think we will get back to, hopefully, back to kind of how it was before all of this. I think there's just a question of the time scale of that, if that'll be quite a quick return or not. And I think for me that largely depends, in my opinion, on what treatments become available for COVID. You know, if the number of ICU beds increase and ventilators, or if they discover a vaccine, that would obviously speed up, you know, the return to how things used to be by some way. But I think it will take some time. Sadly, it's just
when is the question.
I think it's a question of when, and not so much not if, just when, and it will get back to normal.
Has the government been doing enough to support you, do you think?
Well, financially, yes, because the reason I've got this part-time job at Waitrose now was to make up. I'm on the 80% furloughed wages for my bar job. So to make up that last 20%, I just do a few hours at Waitrose.
What is furlough? Can you just explain quickly?
So furlough is essentially if you worked in any of the kind of industries that have now been forced to close down because of the pandemic. The government is running schemes to essentially, you know, keep you in pocket by providing you with a furloughed salary. So in that sense, I think they've been doing enough. I think the government could be doing more to address mental health concerns, not just for OCD, but just, you know, in general.
Because the reason why we didn't go into lockdown was because of mental health, was the fact that Boris didn't think that our mental health, Boris thought that our mental health would be at risk if we went into lockdown too soon. Do you think like that was the correct decision? Do you agree with the general stance on how the government's like tackled COVID pandemic?
So I think we could have been quicker off the mark, because I think if you look at, like, while I agree that being in, you know, situations like this are not conducive to good mental health. At the same time, I think the quicker you lock something down, the quicker you can get out of it. And actually, I think the thing that is damaging to people's mental health is how much time they spend in these kind of oppressive environments of you know, being locked indoors. So I think if it had happened quicker, we might be out of it quicker, and so mental health would actually be better overall. So
I think his intentions were good, and, you know, like, by not going into lockdown because of the mental health, I think his intentions were good by doing that. Don't get me wrong, like, but as you said, I think in the long run, like, mental health wise, it has done more damage. But that's not necessarily the government's fault, because we didn't know how long this would be going on for. And also, like, for example, we could have found a vaccine just at the start, we could have found it in the middle, we could have found it now, we could have found it in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years. We don't know. So, like, to be fair to them, like, like, maybe it was the wrong decision, but they did have some good intentions, I would say, on this subject of mental health in the like handling of the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah, no, I'd agree, but I think it's a very difficult job to make policy decisions like that, because this is a very unprecedented time. There's not really something you can look.
Can I have an extra topic?
Oh, that's a good question. I think one of the things I've been most interested in is because I think one of the things that could have made this entire situation better would be kind of more responsible media coverage of the issue, because I feel like that certain areas were focused on by news outlets and media outlets as opposed to others, and actually there's been sort of negative framings of the issue that could have been avoided and that might have made the situation better in the long run.
I totally know what you mean.
I feel like at the start, for example, like not way before the lockdown, but at the very start, there was obviously, because this is a disease that they suspect originated in China. There was a lot of
xenophobic abuse. Xenophobic racist abuse,
and that was covered partly in the media, but I think they could have made that could have been made more
prevalent
in the media, just for one, I guess. But I think media responsibility and representation is something that's pretty important.
I can definitely explore that. Would you be interested in coming on and talking about that as well?
Yeah, sure.
Amazing. Well, if you liked what you heard here today, you can follow this page, Not Just Politics, and please like and share this video, as the more followers and shares this page gets, the more interaction I'm getting, and it means the more interviews, more content, and more voices heard. For example, I had a message from someone in America who's going to be coming on and explaining CBD to us UK people, because she's going to explain MGs, gummies, all that kind of stuff for when it finally hits here and we can, use it and understand it in a correct way. But thank you so much for coming on, Fraser. I've really appreciated it, and I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, me too. It's been great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. All right, I'll speak to you later. Bye.
Bye.